we have a grammarian, which is Lawrence. Lawrence, can you explain grammarian and also give us the word of the day?
Yes, I can do both. Okay, the grammarian is responsible to record how people speak, basically. Yeah, the main thing that I do, I'm not much of a grammarian in truth, because English was never one of my good subjects, but I do try to record any filler words like ahs and ums and so's and likes when they're not supposed to be used there. And generally speaking, if I hear double words or anything on that sort, then I'll record that also. I also get the honor of recording the word of the day. Now, the word of the day is a word that we pick out that is supposed to increase our vocabulary. So usually I try to pick out a word that's a little bit different, that maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. If you have heard of it, maybe you don't know exactly what it means. So then we can increase that. So today's word of the day was beneficent. Beneficent, meaning doing good or causing good to be done. Like, for instance, the law of the land, the just, holy, beneficent law which is no respecter of persons, from The Underdog by F. Hopkins Smith. Or, why then does any dishonor attach to a beneficent occupation, by Laws from In Laws from Plato. Beneficent.
Thank you, Lawrence, for that great explanation and the word of the day. Next, we have our evaluators. Diego is our general evaluator. Diego, can you give us a quick summary of what the general evaluator does?
Certainly. The general evaluator is the point person who provides the opportunity for evaluation and feedback for the prepared speeches. That is basically the role of the general evaluator.
Thank you, Diego. And Justin will be our evaluator for our one speech tonight. And he'll just give an evaluation of that speech, and you'll get to see that when that happens. Cheyenne is our timer. Cheyenne, can you explain the timer rule?
Yes, so I will keep track of each speech, to our table topic speech, and then the evaluations. You'll get for our table topics, you'll get a green at 1 minute, yellow, and then a red at 2 minutes. And then the different times for the different speeches, and that'll give you your signal when you have reached the minimum time.
Thank you, Cheyenne. And well, also, I'm the table topic master for tonight, and this portion of the meeting is an impromptu section, and the speeches are from 1 to 2 minutes, and I will call upon the Toastmasters, but as a guest, you can join if you'd like, but you don't have to. You can watch a few people do it, but I'll come up with a topic, and then they have to get up and talk spontaneously about the topic for a few minutes. It's a fun part. You'll enjoy it. And that is the agenda for tonight. And we'll now move on to the speeches. Maurice is going to give a speech out of storytelling number 3. What's the title of this one?
No shortcuts.
No shortcuts, right?
Yes.
Maurice will be giving a speech titled No Shortcuts. So let's welcome Maurice.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, tonight my speech is on another work situation. And this was at the company I was last employed at a little more than 4 years ago. And my occupation was a design engineer for marine fire protection systems. This one situation, we were installing a CO2 fire suppression system for a small boat. In this particular situation, the salesperson found that they had racks for the CO2 cylinders installed. And he assured us that the brand of CO2 cylinders that we usually sell will fit there. So we did a cost estimate, and I turned it into the supervisor, and we got a cost for the materials that we needed to put into the system, plus a little profit above that, and then the engineering cost to give a total cost. This particular salesman that we had, he was real good buddies with the local shipyards around the area. So he would give them a low price, a good price for them, but little profit for us. So after going through the cost estimate, we went through the design, and I put together all the parts required for the system. We made the drawings, and then we submitted the drawings. And then somewhere along the line, I forgot exactly where, but we found out that the racks that were installed on the boat didn't match the cylinders that we sold. It was another brand that we weren't authorized to design, but another branch of the company was authorized. So all of a sudden, we had to call back and forth to the other branch of the company so he could do the calculations and determine how many cylinders are needed for this system and the parts that are needed for the system, because we didn't know that particular brand. So that person in the other branch gave us all the parts that we needed, and apparently they had the racks for that particular brand. So during that process, he gave us the prices for those parts, which I believe were more expensive than the ones that we provided. And then the salesperson told us to do another cost estimate, and we did another cost estimate, turned it into him, and then he determined how much they could afford to pay, and found that they weren't willing to pay that extra cost, even though it wasn't our fault. It wasn't the engineering department's fault. It was between the salesperson and the shipyard's fault. But I can remember he sent us an email after we did the redesign and redid the cost estimate. And I could imagine his voice. He didn't say it. I didn't witness him saying it out loud. I could just imagine it in my mind. Here's the project. We took engineering out of the cost, and you have 2 days to design it. And I forgot if we took 2 days or more. We probably took a little more than 2 days, because the supervisor was irate that all this has happened. So I thought that we were going to be I thought it was going to be beneficent for us, but it ended up being more beneficent for the shipyard, because we didn't recoup the engineering costs for the redesign, and in turn did not get much profit. So the moral of the story is, do not take shortcuts. Even though there's more to the moral than not taking shortcuts, there was a communication error between the salesperson and the shipyard. And And some of the time, the engineer would go out to the shipyard and check the ship, but this time it didn't happen that way. So again, the moral of the story is take no shortcuts in design or in any other endeavor. Mr. Toastmaster.
As a fellow engineer, Maurice, this story sounds very familiar. The battles between sales and marketing and engineering. So we actually have a similar situation going on right now, but I won't diverge the meeting. So we don't have another speaker tonight. So we're going to move on to the table topics portion. Do I have a volunteer?
Oh.
I think Lawrence was a little bit faster. So we have Thanksgiving coming up. Lawrence, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food and why do you love it so much?
Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving brings back so many memories of my youth. My mother loved to cook when she was younger. As she got older, she didn't like cooking anymore. But when we were growing up, we always had these big feasts at Thanksgiving and Christmas, mainly Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we'd have turkey, we'd have 2 or 3 different things. We had the famous 50s and 60s Jellos. If anybody has ever seen on Facebook, they talk about these things like Jello with green beans in them, and Jello with carrots, and multicolored Jello parfaits, and all those kinds of things. My mother loved to make those. And we always had a big turkey with stuffing. And actually, my favorite part of Thanksgiving was not actually the Thanksgiving dinner, but it was later in the day. We always had Thanksgiving early in the afternoon, and then we didn't have dinner because we had such a big. So later in the day, I would make a turkey sandwich, and I'd take the cranberry sauce and I would smear it all over the bread. Then I'd put stuffing. Then I'd put the turkey. Then I'd put a cranberry sauce on the other piece of bread and make this delicious sandwich. And even sometimes I was beneficent enough to make one for my brothers or sisters. But it was the most delicious part of Thanksgiving was that leftover turkey with stuffing and cranberry sauce sandwich. Mr. Toppers.
Wow, now I'm very hungry, Lawrence. Thank you for that. Sounds good. I'll have to try that this year. So Diego, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Do you like to travel for the holidays or stay home? Explain your reason.
Thanks, Cody.
Yeah, go on.
My fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I was asked if I prefer staycations over out of town vacations. I think when it specifically comes to Thanksgiving, I think I really enjoy staying in town because it's way more convenient for me to just have a celebration at my house rather than undergo a huge journey to another city to celebrate somewhere else and then come back. I think that's a way more convenient atmosphere for me. It feels way more homely in that way. And it's really nice to just provide a good celebration opportunity at home rather than go somewhere else and find that enjoyment outside of the city, outside of Mobile. I think really that's a big reason why I prefer staying in town for the vacations, and especially in terms of Thanksgiving. Mr. Tabletop's Master.
I agree with you. I prefer not to travel, especially for family events. Okay, do I have another volunteer? Oh, all right, Marie. Describe an interesting Thanksgiving story from a Thanksgiving of the past.
Fellow Toastmasters honored guests. Ho ho, I'm the ghost of Thanksgiving past. I don't remember a past Thanksgiving that really stands out that I could give a story about. But a typical Thanksgiving growing up, you had the turkey, the cranberry sauce, the stuffing, and all the family together eating at the table. And still don't have a memory that stands out. But the Thanksgiving holidays are always beneficent. No, I don't think that fits. Mr. Topic Master.
Thank you, Maurice. Good try on the word of the night. Who'd like to go next? All right, Cheyenne. If you could eliminate one Thanksgiving food, what would it be? And why would eliminating this item make Thanksgiving better?
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, if I could eliminate one Thanksgiving food, it would be those slices of cold cranberry gook. What is that? I don't enjoy it. It smells bad. But I know the older people in my family will eat all of it. I used to not enjoy green bean casserole, and then I tried it one day and I changed my mind on that. So I would have to say my answer would remain on the cranberry sauce.
We have plenty of time. I have two more questions, but we can keep going.
I'll give it a shot.
Justin, what is one thing that you're thankful for this year?
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, I've been asked to talk about one thing that I'm thankful for this year. So I'm just going to pick the first thing that comes to my mind. It may not be a good one or not, but I'm very thankful that I was able to take a nice vacation this year. So I went to Hawaii for a couple of weeks and enjoyed the water and the beach. And I'm a sailor and a windsurfer, and had some really, really good weather. And I was bragging a little bit, but I was there for 14 days, and I got 8 sailing days in. And I got 1 surfing day in at the low end surfing spot where the waves are real short and the locals won't pound you for going out on their break. Had a couple of roommates that I didn't know very well. Another guy just a little older than me, and another guy in his mid-20s, and we shared a 600 square foot little 1-bedroom condo together for a week, which was a bit challenging at times, but overall it was a good experience, and we all had a great time, enjoyed each other's company. Mr. Toastmaster.
Yeah, great. I've never been to Hawaii though, but the description sounds like I need to check it out sometime. All right, we have one more. This one's not really Thanksgiving related, if anyone wants to try it. All right, yeah, here you go again. So today it's not too bad of a drop, but we had a stock market drop. Are you the type of person who panics or keeps her cool when problems arise?
Thanks, Cody. This is a really good question. I think it's a good question that's happened at a very special moment in my life. I tend to panic in response to problems, which I know is not beneficent for my well-being and my mental sanity and my mental well-being, because I think panicking is just a waste of energy that could have been spent trying to resolve the problem, or thinking about, or putting that problem into perspective and realizing maybe it's not as huge of an issue as one would make it out to be. And I think a lot of the new techniques that I'm learning about when it comes to meditation and good mental health well-being is really helping me retrain my brain and my behavior to think about problems not as huge insurmountable obstacles, but to really put them into perspective and think about how they are beneficial for me in my way. I think a lot of speeches that Tony Robbins talks about, or Simon Sinek, where they talk about how it's important to reframe your stress or your problems into challenges that need to be overcome, rather than obstacles that you will never be able to, that are holding you back. I think that's really what's been able to make me think about problems not as a moment to panic, but as an opportunity to resolve. And so I think this is a really good question that was very timely to be asked of me. So I think now, although previously I have been panicking when it comes to problems, with this new perspectives that I have in mind from speakers like Tony Robbins and Simon Sinek, I'm able to now panic less, which is an important step in progress, I would say. Mr. Toastmaster.
Hey, Diego. Yeah, that's true. I was kind of the same way. I'm working on that as well, because it kind of just paralyzes you, and it doesn't enable you to solve the issues that you're going through. So, let's see. So we'll end table topics a little bit early today, since we only had one speech. And now we're going to move on to the evaluation portion of the meeting. This is going to be led by our general evaluator, Diego.
Thanks, Cody. I'll give my general evaluation at the end of the meeting once everyone has had their time to speak. And first, I want to go ahead and welcome to the lectern Justin, who's our first evaluator, who's evaluated Maurice's speech.
There you go. Fellow Toastmasters guest, I'll be evaluating Maurice's speech, No Shortcuts, which is the moral of the story speech. And I'll start by reading the purpose of the speech right out of the manual here. So the speaker had two options for this project: create and tell an original story with a lesson, or take a lesson from another story and create a new story to go with it. The story was to be entertaining and have a surprise twist to the ending, and the speaker was not to use a script or notes when telling the story. It is suggested. Okay, so as far as using notes or script, one thing I noticed about Maurice, and he's very good at this, he's making eye contact with the audience. He's not looking at his notes. His story is coming from his mind. It's not obvious that he's looking down. Like I have a much more reliance on notes when I'm giving a speech like that. Let me say something else too. As an engineer, telling a story like that about my workplace, that's exactly how I deliver something like that. But I do have some suggestions. Was the story presented simply and clearly? So I think it did wander a bit. I think you could have worked on consolidating down the story and maybe less of the specifics, because it's interesting. Cody had the same comment and I was thinking the same thing. It's like, this is as old as time with engineers on these, and the specifics really aren't even that important. I think it's more about the story and the personalities involved. How did the speaker capture and hold your interest? So what I would suggest on that is add details about the personalities. Don't get in depth about and then this happened and this happened. Maybe somebody said something outrageous or had some crazy reaction or had this over-the-top personality that you could relate into that. Or somebody's reaction to the situation might have been comical. That would be something to add to the story. Were all the elements of a good story, including the plot, setting, characters, action, etc.? If not, which ones of these were missing and how did this affect the story? So I think you could have develop the characters a bit more rather than just saying this is someone's role and then this happened. Tell us about that personality and put some color into it with that. How did the speaker use vocal variety to add to the story? So Maurice is very good about vocal variety and concise language, clear language. So Maurice did a great job about that. What was the twist of the story? Was it successful? Why or why not? So there wasn't a twist per se. So there was a conclusion and something happened at the end and that was related back to a moral. But you could have picked a story and presented the story in such a way to have an unexpected ending that I think more clearly fit the objectives for that. So definitely some things to work on, but I could absolutely see me delivering that because that's exactly how I approach those kinds of stories. Mr. Evaluator.
Thanks, Justin. Now I want to give an opportunity for the other Toastmasters who have been assigned different roles for the meeting to share their feedback about speakers and the meeting in general. Cheyenne, can you tell us the timer's report, please?
Yes. Maurice's speech was exactly 6 minutes long. For our table topics, Lauren's speech was 1:59. Diego, yours was exactly 1 minute. Maurice, you had 1 minute and 9 seconds. Mine was 38 seconds. Justin, you're at 1:07. And Diego, for your second one, you're at 1:50. And then our evaluation for our speech was 3 minutes and 12 seconds.
Thanks, Cheyenne. Now, Lawrence, tell us about the grammarian's report, please.
There were quite a few things that I wanted to bring up in the grammarian's report. One of the things that I noticed is that a couple of the speakers had a lot of false starts, where they start a sentence, they stop, and although they change the wording, they start the sentence over again. And you did that a couple of times. Justin did that a couple of times. The word of the day was used 3 times, once by Diego, once by Maurice, and once by myself. As far as ahs and ums, Diego had a few, Cheyenne had a few, Justin had a few. Now, Maurice did not use ahs or ums, but I noticed that you used the word so quite a few times. And if you had used it once or twice, I would have thought that it would just fit into the sentence. But it seemed like it was not really a filler, but you were using it as a bridge word to get from one thought to another instead of just having a pause and then starting the new statement. You did that like 3 times. Also, there were numerous instances where people did use the same word twice. So you start, it's going to be like this, that kind of a statement. And again, Diego does that quite often. Also, Maurice today did it quite often that I noticed. Although there may have been others that I did, and I didn't catch myself doing anything except for 2 or 3 ahs and ums, but I didn't keep track exactly of how many I used. By the way, Diego, in your speeches, you did not use ahs and ums. You used them when you were explaining your role. So you're focused on it when you're speaking, not using it, but in just more casual conversation, you may use it. That's just something I noticed.
Thanks, Lawrence. Now I want to share a little bit about my general feedback. I think we did a good job of, although we did have really great turnout day, I think what was really good was that we used Easy Speak in order to indicate our attendance. We don't have a problem whatsoever with people saying that they're not attending on Easy Speak. We just want feedback. We want an idea of what the turnout is. We don't have a problem with people saying no. Saying no is better than leaving the attendance slot unknown. So that way, that's really great for everyone involved in Toastmasters. I think we started a little bit late but that's just because we had to, we were just hoping for some more people to come to the meeting and address roles, which is not a problem, not a huge deal whatsoever, not a huge problem. And it was a good, and I'm doing exactly what Lawrence had pointed out to me that I'm going to think about for the rest of the week. I think we did a good job of having an extended table topics portion of the meeting to make up for the fact that we had one prepared speech for this meeting. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it back to the Toastmaster.
So that ends the evaluation portion of the meeting. Thank you, Diego, for leading that. And thank you, Justin, for getting up here and giving a review of Maurice's speech. We'll now move on to the educational overview. And I'm just going to pull something from this month's Toastmaster magazine in regards to evaluations. So this is from Bill Brown's DTM, a recipe for the evaluation sandwich. A lot of us are familiar with how evaluations work, but as Lawrence has described recently, that we're changing them a little bit in the pathways. We're doing the 1 through 5 rating, 5 being the best that you could be, which most of us here on a given night would never achieve full 5 in everything. So just remember that. But the evaluation sandwich is giving some things you liked about the speech, some positives, giving a critique that's not your opinion, but what you've noticed. So you take the I think mentality out of the evaluation and say, I saw this and I noticed this, and that is concrete evidence and it's not your opinion, so it helps the person you're evaluating take it in and say, okay, they're seeing this, it's not they're against me or they have a bad opinion about my style, this is what they noticed. And I think that helps. And then the bottom part of the sandwich is finish off with some other positive feedback, another thing that you liked about a speech. And as we're all here to get better, sometimes it's not easy hearing some of the things you did wrong, but this is an environment where we can all grow together. And honestly, I really appreciate the constructive feedback because it helps me improve my speeches and get better as I go along. And there's some other kind of interesting things. I guess what you've seen in some of the bigger contests, they have an evaluation contest, and some of the evaluators are getting a little too creative, like trying to be funny during the evaluations. And it's really about trying to make the person who gave the speech better. And you're more of a support role as an evaluator, not a performer at that point. So that was kind of interesting to see some of the trends that are going on. So if you get a chance to read the article, it's really good. And we do not, no awards tonight. We're going to try to get Heather's award as quick as possible because it's a great accomplishment. And then Lawrence is knocking out his pathway, so we'll probably have some more awards soon, and along with Maurice. And I'm trying to pick it up a little bit, get my first one done. Anything else before we conclude the meeting?
One little thing, if you get a chance, particularly, I know there's other people maybe like Heather or someone, but Justin and Cody, when you get a chance, go to Easy Speak and look at your leadership progress and just get a printout of it. You can print it out PDF or whatever, because I think you might be 1 or 2 tasks away from a CL, both of you. And maybe, I guess you too, Diego, if you can.
I think it's like one of those campaigns or cheering and speech contest or something like that. And that's what most of us are missing that have been here for a period of time.
Yes. Because I think since you've worked on a club success plan, and since you've been an officer, and since you've been to a TLI,
I might be able to knock.
Yeah, if you can knock that one thing out of your CL, then you can just do the 2 presentations and you'll knock out the ALB.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into it.
Okay.
So anyone having any trouble with the technology pathways or eSpeak? Everybody's good? Okay. Well, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.